This week brings the waning moon. That means it's time to just let it all go. And we're talking about romance in this week's Mainly Moonology podcast. Before we get into the astrology and the moonology and everything else for the week ahead, I just wanted to say that we are going to change the date or the time, the day when this podcast goes live. We used to have it on a Monday afternoon, but we've decided, you know what? This is actually hopefully really good information for people who want to know what's coming up this week. And so giving it to you on Monday afternoon UK time means it was going to be Tuesday morning in Australia, et cetera, et cetera. So long story short, we have decided to start to release this podcast every Sunday morning in the UK and the USA, okay, which is Sunday night in Australia. So that means on a Sunday, wherever you are in the world, you should be able to wake up and have a listen to what's coming up in the week ahead. So I hope you will do that. And if you would like to get a weekly reminder or even just an update about what's in the podcast, hop over to yasminboland.com/newsletter. That's yasminboland.com/newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter and you will get a weekly reminder that says the podcast is about to drop and this is what's in the podcast this week. So let's take a look at the astrology for the week ahead. The good news is that the astrology this week is mostly positive. We have Mercury trining Saturn. It is making a little clash with Chiron and then it's harmonizing with Uranus. So let's start by breaking that down. I'll also tell you why there's romance in the air and which signs look like having the most romance coming to them. And also I'll just give you a little shout out about Saturn and what that means. So let's start with Mercury and what Mercury's up to this week. So Mercury is the planet of communications. And when Mercury is harmonizing, then it's going to be easier for us all to get our heads around things and to have easy conversations which just flow, and basically for life to go a bit more smoothly, because when Mercury's in a good mood, communications are in a good mood, and when communications are in a good mood, we're all in a good mood. 26th of June, we have Mercury trining Saturn, which is fantastic because Mercury, planet of communications, Saturn, planet of stability, longevity, congruency. Basically, it means that we're going to kick the week off. June 26th, we are going to have, by June 26th, we are going to have a feeling that life is relatively stable, that you can have conversations with people which are going to stick. You're going to know where you stand. And you're going to find it easier to make a deal if you're making a deal. All that said, by June 28, we do get a clash between Mercury and Chiron. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, positive, positive, positive. Thursday, Friday, we do have this clash between Mercury and Chiron. So just be careful, especially Friday night. If there's someone you always argue with, see if you can give them a wide berth, because the stars will be not just so much argumentative, because argumentative is really a Mars word. This is more of it could be someone says something that hurts your feelings, or maybe you say something that hurts someone else's feelings. All in all, just be really careful Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And it makes me think of the fact that, I did do this research into, if someone triggers you, should you avoid them or should you face up to them and just push through? The general concept seems to be that if you are at the start of your healing journey, having been hurt or upset by someone, then it's a really good thing to sort of just give yourself a bit of grace and just avoid them for a while. But eventually, as you continue your healing journey, actually it's going to pay you to confront people, because, you can't live in a vacuum and you can't grow as a person if you just spend all your time avoiding your triggers. Ideally, healing will lead to you being able to see them and to be able to work through it without losing your cool. So it kind of depends where you are on your healing journey, but just be careful sort of Thursday, Friday about that. And then June 30, which is Sunday, we actually have Mercury harmonizing with Uranus. So I think a really big message for this week is that even if some conversations do go a little bit off, actually they can all turn around again by Sunday night. So now let's talk about the lovely Venus harmonizing with Mars, which we are getting as well on Friday. This is lovely because Venus and Mars are basically the boyfriend and girlfriend of the zodiac. So when Venus and Mars are in alignment, which they are this week on around Friday, it means that relationships can be better. So really what we're getting is the idea that this is a week all about relationships. It could be familial, it could be work, it could be romantic, it could be friendship. But it's a week to really work through your communication skills, because all relationships are about communication skills. And if you're looking for a really good time to have a romantic night with your beloved or your potential beloved, or with a date or whatever, with your partner, it doesn't matter, Friday night is a really good night for it, okay? The other thing to mention is that Saturn, which is currently in the sign of Pisces, is going to start a retrograde cycle this week, which is also interesting in itself because Saturn is the planet that builds, okay? It's the one foot in front of another will eventually get you to where you want to go. It's sort of that sort of feeling. And when it's going forwards, you will be continually challenged. Not in a bad way. Saturn isn't out to get you. Saturn is here to help us evolve. Saturn makes us pay for our karma. Saturn helps us understand that what we sow is what we reap. And so when Saturn's going forward, it's all these sort of lessons that we need in order to build whatever it is that we want to build in our lives. However, when Saturn goes retrograde, as it's doing this week on Saturday, on the 29th on Saturday, when it goes retrograde, that's actually, guess what? It's a time to rebuild. So have a think in your life of what you need to rebuild, okay? It may well be you need to tear it all down first, and then you're going to rebuild it. You can tear it down in the retrograde, which will last quite a few weeks. And then as Saturn retraces its steps when the retrograde ends, you can start to rebuild whatever is in your life that you want to rebuild. If it's your birthday this week, one thing you need to know is that in your birthday chart, you have a rather lovely Venus-Mars alignment, the same one I've been talking about. That means that for you, for one thing, you have Venus in your sign, so you can expect the coming 12 months to be all about you being even more gorgeous than you were before. It also suggests that you can have some pretty good times romantically in the coming 12 months. Plus, also, it suggests, because Mars is in your friendship zone, your friendships are going to be really important to you this month as well. Just remember, you currently have Jupiter in your 12th house on your solar chart, which means it's a year to really work on expanding your spirituality. And it's very important that you think about the way you're communicating over the next 12 months. So one thing we've decided to do here at the Mainly Moonology podcast is give you a card every week from my beautiful Moonology manifestation deck, because they have new moon cards, full moon cards, and quarter moon cards, which none of my other decks do. So this is the last quarter moon in Aries week, which is a card in the deck. It says work through your feelings. So if you're catching this, it means you need to tune into the last quarter moon in Aries. There's a reason why you're listening to this, and here is what you need to know. And I'm going to give you an affirmation for the week as well. Someone, you or someone else, has had their feelings hurt. You really need to deal with this upset, and that works with the Mercury square to Chiron this week as well. Whatever is going on right now will go better if you take steps to make sure that no one is left feeling like they've been emotionally run over. Okay, if you feel like your feelings have been trampled on, it's time to work through them and clear them. Then you can move towards your goals. It's hard to manifest when hurt feelings are in the way. And if you like to work with crystals in the Moonology manifestation deck, I give you a crystals to work with every time. So the crystals to work with: red tiger's eye, shungite, bloodstone, chrysanthemum, prehnite, and flame agate. Okay, so they are the crystals if you like to work with crystals. And the affirmation for the week is, I now choose to release all my hurt. And so it is. Let's say it together. I now choose to release all my hurt. And so it is. So we've also decided that every week on the podcast, we are going to answer one reader's question. So if you would like to ask a question, then click the link below. That is where you can send your question in, and I will answer one a week. This week we have one from Patricia Kerwood. Hi, Patricia, who asks, I'm an Aries sun and Aries moon. So I am interested in the meaning of being a double Aries. Okay, so what does this mean? And if you don't know your chart and you'd like to know your chart, go to moonmessages.com/free chart. Moonmessages.com/free chart. We'll put a link below. So what does it mean to be a double Aries? So basically, we all have lots of different points and planets in our chart. So in a way, just to pull out the sun and the moon doesn't really make much sense, because you really need to see the chart as a whole. However, what we could say is that when it comes to the essential you, because that's your sun is the essential you, and to your feelings, you are an Aries, okay? So say, for example, if you were an Aries but you had your moon in Cancer, say, then you would be less Aries. You're kind of extra Aries because you have the sun and the moon in Aries. But you need to look at your chart, because you might also have Mercury in Aries. My sister, Claudia, is a quadruple Aries. She has 4 planets in Aries. So she's like a super Aries, okay? So basically, you kind of need to do the whole chart, and I can give you a link for a free download, which you can do, and that will not just give you your chart, it will help you to understand it. Go to moonmessages.com/read, moonmessages.com/read, and you will be able to find out where all the planets are in your chart. And maybe you're a double Aries, maybe you're like my sister, you're a quadruple Aries, you know, and there are other people who might have their sun, say, in Sagittarius, but all the rest of their planets are in Capricorn. So it turns out they're actually far more Capricornian than they are Sagittarian, for example. So yeah, do send me some questions. It'll be fun to answer them. If you include your time, date, and place of birth, I'll be able to use this little space here to put your chart up on the screen. That is more or less it for now from the astrology and the moonology. But I did want to say one other thing, which I'd really love you to stick around for before I put you into throw you to an interview. We are morphing the podcast yet again. We've been doing lots of interviews, and we've loved doing interviews with so many fantastic, interesting people like the one you're about to hear. But we feel that we've kind of drifted a little bit off our remit in some ways. And I've kind of, you know, I'm an ex-journalist, so yeah, I want to speak to the person we're going to speak to today because she's so interesting, but we want to bring it back to astrology and moonology. So today I have something that's really not astrology at all, but it's so fascinating if you have a dog or a cat in your life. It's Pea Horsley, who is an animal communicator. Now, he actually kind of made her name because there was a couple who'd lost their dog, and they had tried everything. They'd tried the police and neighborhood watch and everything they couldn't. So someone said, well, you could try that animal communicator, Pea Horsley. So they got in touch with her. And P was actually able to tune into the dog, would you believe? And the dog was down a hole in a part of town where he or she, Marmite, the dog was called, I think, that Marmite never, ever went. And the owners were like, no, I really don't think Marmite's going to be there. Marmite never goes there. And P was like, no, Marmite's there. Marmite's talking to me saying I'm down a hole. And anyway, you'll hear the whole story in the podcast. But I did ask P, do animals have astrology charts? And she was like, man, you're not really sure about that. You'll see. We tried to bring it back to astrology, but we are going to morph back more into just doing plain astrology. But in the meantime, if you love animals, if you have a pet or two, cockatoo, budgie, fish, rat, I know someone with a pet rat, I know someone with a pet snake. This is how you talk to your animals. Have a great week. I know so many of us have animals that we absolutely love. P is a fellow Hay House author, which is how we met. Full disclosure, before we started this recording, she actually had a little chat to John T. And it was so interesting. I won't go into the details, but it was very interesting because she picked up on some stuff that if he could talk to me, he would most definitely say. So that was very interesting. So, Pete, what I want to do is, just because we tend to focus on astrology and manifesting, I do want to kind of try and weave that into the conversation a bit today. So people who might wonder about their dog's star sign and so on. And, you know, you can even ask Jonty. Maybe we can get Jonty's opinion on a few of these things. Who knows? But really, let's first start off with how you discovered that you could talk to animals.
Yeah, so that was back in 2004. I had been working as a theatre stage manager for 15 years, and I felt I wanted to leave that and go back to my first love, which was animals. And I'd adopted a dog from the Mayhew Animal Home in North London. He arrived sad, and he was also my first dog. And I thought, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I don't know dogs as well as I know cats. And then the home invited me to an animal communication workshop, which I thought was basically a politically correct way of saying, get to read your dog's body language. I turned up, and in the morning, the teacher was expressing all these Dr. Dolittle stories. And I was like, what? And I honestly did not believe a word of it. But something made me stay. And then in the afternoon, we were partnered up. We swapped photos of animals. And I'm looking at this photo saying, you can't hear me because you're just a rabbit, and you're not even a real rabbit. You're a photograph of a rabbit. And then I heard, well, who the hell do you think is listening to you? Just like thoughts in my own mind. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this whole group is starting to brainwash me. And I was like, what, you can hear me? So I was like addressing this photo of a rabbit now. Yes, just get on with it. And so I was like, okay. So I asked, you know, what's your favorite food? Who's your best friend? What's your favorite activity? And I received a picture of green leaves. I saw a dark coffee colored rabbit with my mind's eye, like an image like we see when we're dreaming. And I saw a sofa. And I'm like, this makes no sense whatsoever. My partner verified everything except the green leaves, which was wrong, but he was bonded with a dark coffee-colored rabbit, and he liked to sit on the sofa and watch TV, and his favorite program was You've Been Framed. And honestly, there was still a big part of me that was skeptical. I didn't know whether I want to believe this. But when my partner was communicating with my cat, Texas, who is this ginger cat here.
Oh, yeah.
She was able to describe my hallway, which is very distinctive, the color of my sofa, and the name I call it, which is not brown, it's something else, and his favorite thing to sit on in the garden and where it was positioned. And it was like, oh, something is happening here. So I went home, I thought about it, and then I thought, I've got to discover more, because if this is really happening, if I can learn to communicate with animals, not just my dog to find out why he's sad to help him, but with other animals and other species, and, you know, oh my goodness, you know, what about the animals in rescues? What are they feeling? What about the wild animals in captivity? What are they feeling? What do they want to say? What about all of the wild animals and the birds and everyone else that's living in natural habitat? And I was like, I've got to go back. And it was on that second workshop where I went, oh my God, this is the thing that I'm meant to be doing with my life. This is the thing. I found it. I wanted to leave theatre. I wanted to get back to my love of animals. I'd gone through 50 different kind of jobs I could have done. And I felt in my heart, it's none of those. It's something else. I don't even know what the name of it is, but I know it's something else. And then on that second workshop, it landed. And so now I have been doing it professionally for 18, 19 years, since 2005. And it's just the best thing ever.
And you've written a book.
And I've written 3 books. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. 3. You've written 3 now. Amazing. Well done.
Yeah. So the first one came out because I was able to find a missing dog, and it got all over the media. And I was invited to write.
How did you find the dog?
I found the dog I just printed off his photo, sat on my sofa, connected with him using my process, and he literally gave me all of the information I needed. So, you know, he was lost 100 miles away from me.
Wow.
But he described how he left the house, everything he saw, how far he traveled. I did a technique that I teach where I merge my consciousness with an animal so that I can be in their body, so I could feel what he felt. I could feel the concrete structure around him. I could look out of his eyes and I could feel that he was down this deep man-made structure that was a long way up till there was a bit of light. I could feel water with my paws. And then I did another technique, remote viewing, where I moved from him. I said, I need to see above you. I need to get some kind of landmark. So then I did the remote viewing that I teach, where I move my consciousness above in the air. So I'm now hovering in the air, looking down, and I can see it's all brambles. There is no landmark when I'm looking around in this area. And I said to him, how can we find you? There's nothing here for me to say to your garden, this is where you look. And he said, I'm a mile from home. You have everything you need. And I was like, okay. And by now I'd been communicating for a few years. So I just, yeah. So I just trusted him. I trust the animal when they say something like that to me. I just trust it. Went back to the guardian, and she said, oh, well, he won't be anywhere with water. I live next to a sand quarry. He will have dug down in the sand quarry. She had been digging. She'd hired a mini digger. She'd hired a JCB digger. She'd hired thermal imaging kits and search and rescue dogs, and they couldn't find him. And I said, well, go the way that he said he went, travel for a mile, think of somewhere where there's water or some kind of connection to water. And she said, well, there is one place, and that's definitely the way he left the house and the way he went. But I've been there and he's not there, and I can't hear, I'll never hear him anyway because he doesn't bark, even though he's a Jack Russell, right? He's like the only Jack Russell in the world that doesn't bark. And I said, oh, don't worry about that. Just go out and I'll communicate with him and I'll ask him to reply to you.
And were you on the phone to each other, sort of thing?
We were on the phone to the guardian, yeah, so just telling her everything. And she went, okay, I'll do it. Because I said, even if we have to rule it out. So she was heading off. I reconnected with Marmite. I said, okay, she's coming. I've told her everything you've given me. She's on her way. But you're down underground and there's no way to see you. So if you hear her, you have to bark. And don't start barking until you can look into her eyes. That was my thing. And he went, okay. It's that simple sometimes with animals. So I went, all right, good luck. I put down, my telepathic connection with him, went off to make my dinner. Literally within an hour, my phone rang and the guardian was screaming down the phone saying, we found him. And she said, can you hear him? And she held out her mobile phone and all I heard was this dog bark, 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 bark. And then I went, oh, you don't have him yet, do you? And she said, no, he's down underground and we can't reach him. And something in me said, well, you need to get him out today, even if you have to call the fire brigade. He had been stuck down this disused canal shaft for 7 days, 7 nights by now.
Oh.
And that's what she did, basically. She called the fire brigade. They lowered a bucket and he was like, refused. And then her husband said, what about his bed? So he raced home, came back with Marmite's bed. They lowered the bed. He got straight in. All this time, he has not stopped barking. They haul him up. She gathers him up into her arms, holds it on her chest. They look eye to eye. And that's when he stops barking. And he didn't bark.
Made me cry. Oh, what a beautiful story.
Yeah. And that was the last time he barked. He only barked for that rescue.
Oh.
Yeah.
And how blown away were you by that? I mean, were you shocked that it was possible, despite being quite experienced?
I wasn't shocked, but I was thrilled.
Yeah.
I was, it's like, it's worked. Great.
Yeah.
It's like everything he expressed and she carried through, and all of just listening to those intuitive feelings and nudges, even though I couldn't make sense of any of them. It worked. Yeah, it works. It's like, what a relief when we've got him and he's safe and he's going to recover. He'll be fine.
And I have to ask, the former journalist in me has to ask, have you had lots of these cases where it hasn't worked? Or
I do. Obviously, it's impossible to be
mostly
100% correct. Okay.
Yeah.
But there are times when the animal doesn't want to be found. They've left home on purpose. They've rehomed themselves. There are times when the animal has gone off to transition gently in their own way, or because the guardian probably would have had the instinct to do a lot of active treatment and they didn't want it. So they've taken things into their own hands. There are other times when the guardian is not able to recognize the information I'm giving because they've been stolen. At any point when an animal is relocated from an area they know, particularly dogs and horses, it's really hard for the guardian to know where that is. It needs to be local, So there's those cases too. And there's some really complicated theft cases where people, like particularly during COVID, were stealing animals, keeping them in their basements and then selling them on something like Gumtree for a huge amount of money. It's really hard to reunite people with their animals in those scenarios.
Yeah, because then the dog doesn't even know where it is anyway, sort of thing.
Yeah.
For example. Okay. All right. Okay. So going back to the start of the story, when you printed out his picture and you looked at Marmite, you printed out Marmite's picture and sat down on your couch and looked at him and connected. When you connected with him, did he kind of know what was happening? Was he happy to hear from you? What was the scenario there?
He was thrilled to hear from me, and he was really cool and laid back about it, to be honest. He was like the most laid back, trapped, missing dog I've ever communicated with.
Okay.
Often they're a bit anxious, but he was, I don't know whether he knew it was all going to work out, but maybe it's like people, some are like half glass full, some are half glass empty. He was definitely a half glass full kind of dog.
Right. But he was happy, he was cooperative sort of thing.
Yeah, immediately.
Amazing.
Okay. This is where I left. The door was hinged on the left side. I crossed this path. The fence was like this. Then there was a field and there was a wood on the left. And I kept going. Just give me all the details.
Okay, amazing. Now, the next question I had is, I have a friend in New York called Laura Day, who they call her the Psychic of Wall Street, who, by the way, FYI, gets paid, and she's public about this, 15,000 American dollars an hour to consult to Fortune 500 companies about which way the market's going and so on. And some of what you're describing to me is really what she does, except with humans. Are you tapping into some kind of general ability to do this, and you could do it with humans as well, or have you found it's just with animals? How does it work for you? Because it's remote viewing, it's embodying someone, getting into hit the dog's body, for example, and seeing what he was feeling and seeing what he was seeing and all that. Is it just animals, or have you tried it with humans, or what's the story there?
My focus is animals, but of course, we're working with energy. We're working with the energetic field. So information does come to me from humans, but I like to focus. It's really, for me, it's about attention and intention. So it's whether I'm asked to do it. I've also had a client whose mother who was not able to communicate due to severe Alzheimer's. I looked into her mother's eyes and communication started happening. And then my client said, I can see that you're talking with her, but I don't go out of my way to do it. I like human beings. I do. And I like them more since I've been communicating with animals, to be honest. But I really love animals. So that's where my focus is.
And is most of your work in trying to find missing animals, or is it beyond that?
No, it's not, thank goodness, because it's really hard trying to find missing animals. It's moved on a lot. That's kind of where I started, and answering people's queries about how their animals are feeling, the strange behaviors they have, what their wishes are for end of life, or, palliative care and that kind of thing, or communicating with animals that have transitioned. but I have moved very much more into a bigger field of communicating with wild animals in their natural habitat. So I now take small groups on animal communication retreats where we communicate with bears and orcas or dolphins and whales. And next year it will be lions and elephants and cheetah and leopard and hyena and wild dogs and all of those kind of animals.
In fact, you're going to Africa.
I'm going to Africa.
Amazing.
And also it's expanded ever since COVID too. It's expanded more to nature, the natural world, Mother Earth. I created the Conversations with Nature World Summit after a conversation with the animal kingdom and asking them, how can I best be of service to you? And they wanted to reach as many human beings as possible, trying to bring us all together in a deeper connection with nature, not just animal communication, but with the trees, with the plants, with water.
So can I ask you, P, like this morning, actually, my son, Louis, who's 17, we were talking about Jonty, my dog, who's here. Hi, baby. Yes, he heard his name. And Louis said, I wonder what it's like to be a dog, like, is it just easy because they just get love and, or being Jonty in particular? And I said, I'm not sure. I think it's kind of a disempowered existence in some ways because they can't feed themselves. They're totally reliant on us. And he was like, yeah, but he knows he's going to be fed and all that. And I'm like, yeah, but do you not think he looks at the fridge and he knows all the good things come out of the fridge, but he can't open it, for example? He's never even seen inside it, really. So from your perspective, maybe you can answer this question that we shared this morning, literally. Like, what is it like to be I know we're talking about, lions and tigers, but I'm still on the domesticated front. I'm just going back there for a minute. What do you think it's like for a domesticated animal to be, what is their life like?
Oh, this is such a fun question. And just before I answer it, just to let you know, my previous dog, Bodhi, who was adopted from a rescue, after he arrived, he learned how to open the fridge. And every night he took out exactly 8 items and he carried them through to the living room and he opened them and he ate them if he liked them, or he just opened them, tasted them and discarded them if he didn't. And it was night after night after night, 8 items all the time. And then I literally had to put a lock on the fridge.
I bet you did.
So they can get into the fridge.
Yeah.
It's really, if we generalize all human beings a certain way, it's the same as generalizing all dogs.
Right.
Some dogs are more evolved than others. Some are really happy with what I call the basics. The food, the affection, the comfort. Where are you going? I want to come. The keen ones like that, the earthy dogs. And then there are others that are more evolved who are healers and want to be close to people to heal them and support them on their own soul journey.
Dogs can be healers or just cats? Because I've heard about cats being healers.
Oh my goodness, all animals can be healers if they choose to be. Including snakes. Snakes are very, very healing.
Wow.
Horses, very healing.
Right.
Guinea pigs, incredibly wise.
I do get a healing energy from horses as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe Jonty's a bit of a healer. Who knows?
And horses also, dogs also, they heal people through joy.
Yes.
And we mustn't underestimate how important that is in our lives.
Exactly. I mean, Jonty, I can be in a bad mood about something and I'm walking up the stairs and I notice the funny way he walks up the stairs and it makes me laugh. So, brings me back to joy. I've read that dogs, when they sniff the ground, they can get up to 150 pieces of information. Now, how somebody has worked that out, I have no idea. But what are they doing when they're sniffing? Do you know that? Have they told you?
Why don't my dog has decided to be here. So why don't I just ask her? She's called Grace.
Yes. Okay, yes.
Because she loves sniffing. So let me just get it directly from a dog.
All right.
I do it because it's my passion. There's so much information. I'm able to tell everything about everyone. We pass information like this. It's a vital source of connection and understanding. I do it because it's fun. I do it because it's interesting and it stops a walk being boring, especially when there's no food. I do because I'm a dog and it's my life and I like doing it.
All right. So I wonder if they're communicating with each other when they do wee on their walk, and then somebody else comes along, another dog comes along and wees on their wee. And
Yeah, I believe that they're able to tell who the dog was, the age of the dog, whether the dog is ill. Like dogs can and cats can
wow,
sniff our urine and they know whether we're ill or not.
perfect. Thank you, Grace and P. And one other question: when they're unwell, do they know they're unwell? Like, when they're under the weather, or do they just?
They're completely aware. They know that they're not well. They're way more aware of their health and bodily functions than we are about our own.
Yeah.
And depending on the animal and their personality, they might want to just be stoic and ride through it and ignore it, or they're really good at dealing with pain or discomfort and they're just getting on with life.
Because I really felt that Jonty had like a stomach upset maybe a year ago, not that long after we rescued him. And I really felt that he really appreciated the way I looked after him. I felt like we were closer afterwards because
Yeah.
he really saw that I was concerned about him and I looked after him and I did all the right things. And I really felt that. So there we go. There we go. So
Yeah, because you had a real connection where he felt seen by you, and that's so important to animals.
right, yes. I don't even want to ask you what they experience in a rescue home. I mean, I hate to think what they experience in a rescue home. I guess it's like us being let go by our family. And suddenly I have seen a video of one dog sort of waiting at the window for weeks for his owner to come back. And of course she didn't. And yeah, so they must have a fair bit of trauma from that sort of thing.
One tip I can give you is if you go to an animal rescue home, rather than allowing your emotion to go into depression and sadness and feeling upset by what you see and bringing that really low vibration to the animal that you're looking at, instead come with love and come with a sense of joy that things are going to get better, and reassure them that you are beautiful, you're handsome, you're loved, and it might take a while, but someone that appreciates you for you is going to come and find you, and you're going to have the best life. Things are
Yeah.
going to change for the better, because then you're coming in at a much higher vibration, because otherwise they have got nowhere to move to. You're coming in and you're kind of like just making the whole thing even more depressing if you go in and go, oh my God, it's terrible. So instead, come in, and you don't have to be an animal communicator in the way that I would do that telepathically. Just say it out loud, just voice it.
Yeah.
Those really positive, loving thoughts that things are going to get better and change.
Yeah. So with Jonty, I'd been applying to Battersea Dogs Home for 2 years. I never even got a reply, to the point where I wrote to them, are you actually getting my applications? Blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, like on a Thursday or a Friday, I saw Jonty on their thing. I was like, bang, I'm applying for him, yet another dog that I'm not going to hear back on, but whatever. Got the email back on the Friday, and they said, if you come in on the Monday and you want him, he's yours. I'm like, what? After all this like complete silence, I walked in and straight away I was like, there's just no question, he's definitely coming home with me, and he did. And I also know of other stories of similar stories with people. In fact, it happened with my cat that I had for many years. When I went to her to see where she was, her owner was giving her away, and Blaze literally just ran up my body to my shoulder, like it was like that. So
Yeah.
do we kind of have the cats and dogs that we're meant to have, or is there some sort of thing, or could he have gone to anyone? Do you have any theories about that, or do you want to ask Grace or Jonty?
I think it can be a bit complicated. I do feel that certain animals want to come to us. Like this cat obviously wanted to come to you. My current cat really wanted to come to me. And she was south of France during COVID, but she said it will be easy for me to come to you, and I'm coming. And I feel like every dog that has come into my life has actually come in purposefully to support me with the animal communication. Yeah, I think a lot of the time animals do choose us, and they make it clear, you're my person.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
having you.
I felt like it was just strange that I couldn't get a dog. I couldn't even get an interview, so to speak. And then all of a sudden it's like, we'll come in at 2 on Monday, and if you want him, he's yours. I'm like, oh my God. And
your dog is here.
Yeah, my dog is here. And I knew straight away, yeah, that's my dog. And he's perfect. Like, he's exactly the sort of dog I wanted. I wanted a small dog. But we minded a Pomeranian, but I didn't really want a Pomeranian because I thought, well, we'll never be Rose, the Pomeranian that we'd minded, but I still want, and Jonty is all that and more. So, hey, baby. So, just for anyone who's listening, who wants to know, you're saying you mainly communicate telepathically, although you do also say it out loud when you're on a Zoom and you're doing it for me to understand. But generally you do it telepathically, do you?
Yeah, which is really just deep intuition. It's really, which we're all born with, so we can all communicate with animals. And it's just about listening to that internal voice, the images that might pop up in your mind's eye, the emotions that you feel, the physical sensations that you feel, the gut knowing, and just paying attention to our intuition.
Yeah, because I know with Jonty at one point, he had a sore back leg, and I took him to the vet because he wouldn't walk on it, and I was very concerned. And they did all these tests, like they thought maybe it was a ligament or it was, I don't know what, the thing off the hip and blah, blah, blah. And then in the end, they did the test and they were like, no, actually, we don't know what it is, but it might just be a soft tissue injury. And so then I asked my friend, the psychic of Wall Street, by the way, back leg is weird. What do you think? I didn't say anything more than that. And she said, oh, no, it's nothing to worry about. It's just a soft tissue injury. And she was right. So there's no doubt that this works. And then before we started recording, I asked you that question about Jonty. And you then said, you know, there's something like this. You literally drew a picture of the place where I was talking about without having a clue what I was talking about, and gave a very, very valid explanation. So to me, you know, this is sort of irrefutable, this kind of thing. So are there any basic tips that you can give me apart from read my book, which I'm sure we're actually going to talk about your first book at the end. You'd better tell me about the other two books kind of quickly, but then also give us a little, you know, how do we get into that headspace to have a chat with our, you know, dog or cat or zebra tonight?
Yeah, I suggest anyone that wants to do this, literally just sit with them if they're with you, or sit in a space away from them. It doesn't matter, but put your focus, your intention on having some kind of exchange with them. Relax your body just by breathing in and breathing out slowly. Drop your focus down into your heart. I quite like to put my hand over my heart just to bring my mind's attention to it. Send your animal a feeling of love, and then just wait and be receptive and open and neutral, and something will come to you. If they wish to communicate with you, you will receive something.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So tell us today the titles of your three books. There's the first one about the missing dog, Marmite. What's the
That's
title?
called Heart to Heart.
Heart to Heart.
The second one is The Animal Communicator's Guide Through Life, Loss and Love.
Oh, okay.
And the third one is Animal Communication Made Easy,
which is the Hay House one.
The last two are Hay House. The first one is HarperCollins. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So assuming people would like to seek out your services, are you still seeing regular clients on a regular basis?
I am seeing clients when I can. So I am accepting client consultations through my website, animalthoughts.com.
Animalthoughts.com.
Yeah, thoughts as in thinking, thoughts with an s.com. I also have an online course. I've got a free 14-day challenge at the moment. I have a membership called The Pride, which meets monthly to communicate with a different species every month. And that is just incredible. The community is amazing. They're all over the world. And that's very much in alignment with what's happening with the planet and what the animal kingdom want. So each month, a different animal comes forward. They choose who's going to communicate with the community. And then we all have a communication with that species, which is mind-blowing. And it's very individualized as well. Right. It's really about intention. I'm addressing the animal kingdom in the same way that I am addressing elephants. And so the whole of the oversoul of elephants. And then if an individual, whether in physical body or transition, wishes to communicate with me, they can. Otherwise, I'm addressing the oversoul of all of elephants. With the animal kingdom, I use my intention. I'm asking you, how can I best be of service to you? In the same way that we can communicate with all of ferns, which is one of my favorite plants, or, you know, we can communicate with water. It's really about trusting that energy. It's just so exciting. And that there's no barrier of time and space. It's really how we view our relationship with and as part of the natural world, and whether we are really locked into that idea of separation, which really is separation sickness that we're sort of like fed. But we are connected to everything.
Actually, now I think of it, P, I have had Jonty talk to me once, like really properly. It was when I'd only had him for probably 3 months, and I was sitting at my desk working, and he came and put his little hands up, you know, little paws up, and looked at me. And I was looking at him. I was like, what is it, Jonty? What is it? And suddenly I knew he wants water. And I went to his bowl and it was bone dry. I was like, oh my God, he just told me he wanted water.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
There we go. I suppose it can actually happen. Yeah, it's amazing, amazing, amazing. All right. Well, I've been promising since we started talking I'd make one astrology question. So I happen to know Jonty's birth date, more or less. Do you think I can look at his birth chart, or do you think it would just be easier to talk to him?
What's your aim? What are you trying to achieve?
I suppose to get to know him better. I don't know. He's a Leo.
He is a Leo, is he? That's what came to me earlier, and I was like, surely you can't be a Leo, but he's a Leo. Okay.
He's a Leo. Yeah.
Oh,
maybe he is a bit of a Leo. Maybe he has a personality of a Leo. Like, you know, he likes to be adored and likes to look his best.
I don't know if I could call that, to be honest, whether it really...
I don't really buy into it either, to be honest. I don't know why it wouldn't apply to them, but I don't really buy it either. I did actually at one point get paid by People magazine in the USA to write pet horoscopes for 12 months, because I think they had a dog food sponsor, which I didn't realize at the time that was why they were doing it. But I did realize at the end of the contract, that's why they'd done it. And I sort of wrote them just thinking, well, I mean, it's worth a try. You know, your dog might be a little bit extra angry this month because he's got Mars going through his sign, for example, whatever. But I'm not really a huge believer in astrology and dogs and cats either. But who knows? Maybe we'll find out one day on the other side.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe there's someone that knows about it. I don't know about it.
It's not something that really, I just had to ask an astrology question because that's what this podcast is about. But, you know, maybe we just needed some people to start to open up to all this. And, you know, it's really fascinating. So tell us again where people find you, okay? Give us your website address and your Facebook and your Instagram or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, so the website is animalthoughts.com. The Facebook page, I think, is simply Pea Horsley.
Pehorsley.
Yeah, and I think Instagram is the same, Pea Horsley. I should know this, shouldn't I? Honestly. But I've got such an unusual name that if you type in Pea Horsley Animal Communicator, I'm going to come up, honestly.
Exactly. All right.
And if I can just mention one thing, my love.
Please.
Because I know you've got a huge Australian following, and I'm actually going to Australia in July.
I'll get Jonty up to this. The noise he makes when I pick him up. Okay.
Bless you, Jonty. I'm actually going to be teaching. I'm flying to Australia in July. Look at that face. I'm going to be teaching a really immersive 6-day training in July, starting on the 13th. I've got 2 places left. So if anybody is interested in joining me, then just check it out on my website. Tell
us the date again and the venue or the place, the city.
It's going to be in Noosa.
Okay.
In Queensland, and the dates are the 13th to the 18th of July. And there's the option, if If you want to, you can just do level 1 or just level 1 and 2, or you can do the whole shebang, levels 1 to 3 for those dates. And if you're a complete beginner, that's absolutely fine, because I start right from beginner. Then we have a practice day. Then we do Gestalt, remote viewing. We do connecting with our own power animals. And we also look at the whole of end of life, transition, life, loss, love as well.
Right. And do people bring their animals or not?
No, they don't need to. They bring photos of their animals, but I have
a menagerie.
I have loads of animals coming as animal guest teachers. This is actually easier for everyone. I know you might think, oh, but I want to bring my own. Could you imagine everyone bringing their own animals?
Yeah. No.
I have guest teachers coming in at particular times to teach different subjects, and there's 6 core subjects basically over 6 days.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know. We'll make sure that this podcast goes out well in time for that. And P, thank you so much. And thanks for the little chat we had with Jonty before we came on air.
Oh, thank you. And much love to you, Jonty. Look at your beautiful face.